How's it going? This is Dylan with DylanPickups and DylanTalksTone.com. And now that I got the shop kind of remodeled and everything where we want it, I wanted to show you my soldering rig because people ask me all the time about soldering and soldering tips, as in not soldering tips, but like tips on soldering. So I'm going to show you what I've got. And maybe what I've got's a little bit overkill because I do this all day long every day for you, but I can give you some pointers on what you can look for. All right, so here's a basic overview of my soldering rig at DylanPickups. The iPad actually has nothing to do with soldering, except for that's what I watch YouTube videos on and Netflix while I'm sitting here grinding away. So the first thing you'll notice is that I have a pretty big soldering rig. This is kind of as big and complicated as it gets. And the reason for that is, I kept this over from another business that I used to own, where I did a lot of surface mount chip soldering and stuff. Obviously I don't do that in guitar building, but that's where this came from. The benefit of having something with a gauge on it is you can adjust your temperature. So if you're soldering to the backs of pots and you're soldering base plates and various things like that, it's nice to be able to crank the heat up a little bit and handle that. And then when you come back down to small diameter wires for, you know, soldering inside a guitar, it's nice to be able to vary that. This says 700 right here. Some people would flip out and say I never would solder at 700 degrees. It's more of a feel thing to me. If you've not done much soldering, I would solder at 600. And this is just kind of a feel thing to me. And honestly, I think the last thing I was doing was I was soldering to the back of some pots. So, and different pots actually react to heat differently. Bournes have a cap on the back of them that you can put a little heat to them without hurting them. CTS pots have a shaft in the middle that can be melted. So be very careful when you're soldering to certain kinds of pots and to vintage pots too, because they'll melt. The main thing about, and I'll tell you a couple kind of cool things. This is just because we're nerding out right now. But this has a hot air thing. And this has one, if I pick this up, an air pump will start and it will blow hot air out that deal right there. What that's for actually is for using hot air to solder surface mount microchips, and it's fantastic for that. Obviously I don't do that anymore, but it makes one heck of a shrink tube heater, so that's pretty sweet. This is the soldering iron itself on this particular one. I will tell you that this is a made in China thing that I ordered on Amazon. It's lasted me for years and I love it. If it were to ever fail, I would probably just buy another one. But one of the reasons I bought it is because it has a Heiko style, let's clean this up a little bit. It has a Heiko style iron, okay? And it's a small diameter iron and the tips are interchangeable, and I can buy replacement ones very cheaply, okay? And this is my favorite style of iron. One thing I would caution you against is if you're gonna buy an iron, make sure that it's an actual iron, okay? With the heating element in the tip like this. Do not ever use a coil-driven trigger kind of soldering iron on a guitar. That is an electromagnetic deal that will flatten magnets very, very quickly. You can ruin a pickup by using that near your guitar. So don't ever use those near your guitar. You can buy a Heiko or a Heiko style generic made in China one of these for $30–40 on Amazon. And it comes with a little, I have one actually at one of my remote locations, and it has just a little knob. Instead of all this complicated stuff, just has a little knob. It's a fantastic iron. For $30–40, there's no excuse to not have a really good one. And all the replacement pieces you can get, the real Heiko replacement pieces if it were to ever break. Some people, you notice I don't use a wet sponge. I use one of these. This is the brass mesh that you use to clean your solder tip with. It makes it to where it doesn't corrode as much and it doesn't bring moisture into your work. This thing is fantastic. And then basically I just have a third hand thing for holding stuff. That's really it. I don't have a whole lot. Oh, and my solder that I use is, and I have experimented tons. This is, I bet the label's ripped off so I can't tell. But this is Kester 6040 solder, and it's rosin core, and it is fantastic. It works really, really well. It flows really good. It flows quickly. It doesn't require that you have to overheat your parts. It is a very, very good solder. It's a little more expensive, but if you just buy any old, go on Amazon and buy solder, you'll find some of them, the rosin is really gross. It's gummy, it'll be sticky. It'll cause you to make a mess when you solder. This stuff is really, really nice. It's a little more expensive, but it's worth it. And you don't have to buy it in a pound like this. You could buy it in the little to-go tube things for, you know, 10 bucks or something. Another thing that I would definitely recommend when you're working on any kind of guitar work is don't use electrical tape or anything. You can go to McMasterCar.com and you can buy shrink tubing by the 25-foot roll for super, super cheap, and pick your diameter, and this just will make a nice, neat package inside a guitar instead of having to worry about taping stuff up or insulating anything. And this stuff will melt, this McMaster-Carr stuff that I got will actually melt with a blow dryer. So, I mean, I use that thing, but it'll melt with a blow dryer. So, I would say you could get this entire setup right here, the consumer version of this, for, let's see, 30, 40, 50. You would have, I think this was a little expensive, but I would say for everything, you could have this whole rig right here for 60 bucks, and you would be able to professionally solder anything. And you might say, well, I don't really solder that much, so I'm not that good at it. When you get a good iron in your hand, where when you actually can just touch, heat, and you get good solder, it will do itself. Okay, a lot of people say, well, I melt stuff and I do this and that. The problem is they're not getting good heat into whatever they're using, and they're not heating up both objects equally, and they're not having good solder that can flow right in there. If you have those things, and I mean literally, this is 60, 70 bucks right here, you'll have a professional grade soldering rig that you'll be able to go in and do anything you want. It's funny because people are constantly like, they're constantly like, I can't believe you give up all those secrets or whatever. And honestly, the bottom line is, if you don't Google it from me, you're gonna Google it from somebody else, and they're gonna tell you what to solder with and what to use. And you know, this stuff's just kind of out there. And I think that people do overkill with what they buy a lot of times. Like I said, 60, 70 bucks, you can have everything right there. And it'll work, and it'll be really reliable, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. If you watch this video and you're wondering about anything else, or you have any questions about what we do or how we do it here, or anything to do with guitar tech, and you want me to say, I want you to be more specific about X or Y or whatever it is, you let me know in the comments, or you shoot me a Facebook message at DylanPickups, or you shoot me an email at dylan@dylanpickups.com. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out at dylantalkstone.com. Check out our podcast on Monday nights. Any of that stuff. If you have any questions, holler at me, and we will talk to you next time.